Well, good day to all my bipartisan friends out there. This is your average Joe, your host for this episode of The Bipartisan Guy. Today we're going to talk about U.S. trade with China, which appears to have hit a little bit of a snag. So let's dive in. The U.S. China Relations Act of 2000, which was signed into law October 10th, the year 2000, by then United States President Bill Clinton. The bill was sometimes referred to as the China Shock Bill, H.R. 4444. The bill authorized extension of non-discriminatory treatment, aka normal trade relations treatment, to the People's Republic of China and to establish a framework for relations between the United States and the People's Republic of China. The approval of the legislation was also going to end a practice dating back to 1979 in which extended normal trading privileges were given to China only on an annual basis. This would instead permanently guarantee Chinese goods the same low tariff access to U.S. markets as is given to products from all but a few other countries. In return, China agreed to lower tariffs on U.S. products and to take other market opening steps in the area ranging from agriculture, automobiles, telecommunications, and the financial markets. It also put China on a track to enter the World Trade Organization later the following year. The House at the time consisted of a Republican majority, 221 to 212, along with two independents. The Speaker of the House was Representative Denny Hastert, a Republican from Illinois, who, for note, like any other good Republican, in 2016 was sentenced to 15 months in prison in a hush money case that revealed he was being accused of sexually abusing young boys while he was a teacher in Illinois. The bill flew through the House in 5 months, with 164 Republicans voting yay and 57 no, while only 73 Democrats voted yay and 138 voted no. The final vote ended with 237 yeas and 197 noes, with one Republican not voting. So off to the Senate, the bill must go. When the bill reached the Senate, over 25 amendments were introduced, 5 of which were proposed by Senator Paul Wellstone, a Democrat from Minnesota. They consisted of requirements such as the PRC had to take certain actions with respect to ensuring religious freedom, ensuring human rights protections. He also asked for a response to inquiries regarding people who had been detained or imprisoned for organizing independent trade unions. He also asked to require the PRC to strengthen the rights of workers to associate, organize, and strike. He also asked whether the PRC had made any progress in releasing from prison people who had been incarcerated for organizing independent trade unions, all of which were voted down. Senator Robert Byrd, a Democrat of West Virginia, proposed an amendment that would require the United States to support the transfer of clean energy technology with respect to China's energy sector, and it was voted down. Senator Fritz Hollings, a Democrat of South Carolina, offered up 5 proposed amendments. He wanted to strike the provision terminating the application of Chapter 1 of Title 4 of the Trade Act of 1974 and the effective date provisions. But he also wanted to provide for the accessibility of the People's Republic of China to the World Trade Organization. He also wanted to direct the Securities and Exchange Commission to require corporations to disclose foreign investment related information in their 10K reports. He requested that the Executive Office report to the Congress annually, beginning in January 2001, on the balance of trade with China for certain things like wheat, corn, and rice, and soybeans. And he also asked to direct the executive branch to eliminate any deficit, and he requested that the executive branch report to the Congress annually, beginning in January 2001, on the balance of trade with China for advanced technology products, and direct the executive branch to eliminate any deficit, to condition eligibility for risk insurance provided by the Export-Import Bank or the Overseas Private Investment Corporation on certain certifications. All these amendments were voted down. Then there was Senator Bob Smith, a Republican in New Hampshire, who proposed an amendment to require that the Congressional Executive Commission monitor the cooperation of the People's Republic of China with respect to POWs and MIA issues. He asked for the improvement in the areas of forced abortion, slave labor, and organ harvesting. That amendment ended up divided into 6 divisions, which 3 ended up being withdrawn and 3 being voted down. There was Senator Jesse Helms, a Republican in North Carolina, who at the time was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He proposed 2 amendments that required the executive branch to certify to Congress that the PRC had taken certain actions with respect to ensuring human rights protection, to express the sense of Congress regarding forced abortions in the People's Republic of China, and to require the Secretary of Congress to consult with the leaders of American businesses to encourage them to adopt a code of conduct for doing business in the People's Republic of China. That too was voted down. And the Senate passed the bill without any amendments by a margin of 83 to 15. President Clinton signed the U.S.-China Relations Act of 2000, granting Beijing permanent normal trade relations with the United States, paving the way for China to join the World Trade Organization in the year 2001. Now, look at where we're at today. Had those amendments been put in place, we could have had a chance to keep China in check. Was it greed, or was it a permanent normal trade relations? Well, it was one of the costliest and most spirited periods of lobbying and arm twisting on Capitol Hills in years for that time period. The act granted China permanent normal trade relations. It effectively meant China would no longer be subject to a yearly review and approval for its trade relations with the U.S., and helped usher it in to the World Trade Organization. Was it a bipartisan vote? I would say not. I would say it was more greed than normal trade relationships. It was a big setback for organized labor, which waged a fierce campaign to defeat the measure. But the desperate Seattle Coalition, which consisted of union leaders, human rights activists, environmentalists, and other opponents of globalization, could take some solace their objections were heard and were partially reflected in the trade bill's final language. I disagree that it was reflected in any of the language, but Clinton hailed the House action, saying it will boost economic growth in America, strengthen U.S. national security, and promote democracy and human rights in China. Boy, was he wrong on that one. He did note that the bill did not solve all the differences between the United States and Beijing. There were such issues as Taiwan and missile proliferation that would most likely not be solved with this bill. There was an article from CNN at the time that was titled, "Big Biz Wins, China Vote." Corporate America. The article goes on to say, corporate America is celebrating the passage in the House of Representatives of legislation that expands U.S. trading ties with China, a landmark accord that would pry open Beijing's potentially enormous markets for computers, insurance, crops, and a whole host of other products. The House approved the hotly contested bill in a 237 to 197 vote, ratifying the bilateral trade pact brokered by the Clinton administration and Chinese officials. But the bill still has another step ahead. The Senate, which is expected to easily approve the measure, is due to vote on the legislation. U.S. businesses have lobbied fiercely for the legislation, with heavy-hitting backers including Motorola, Intel, Microsoft, Citigroup Finance, Caterpillar, Whirlpool, and General Motors. Big business had spent millions on advertising blitz in the days leading up to the vote. Quote, "It's really a momentous vote, a case of House putting the long-term economic interest of the country above short-term political calculations," unquote, said Mark Braveilov, a spokesman for the Washington-based American Electronics Association, one of many trade groups that pressed legislation. The House approval gives, quote, "a potential charge to our high-tech industry," he said. The legislation would award China permanent normal trade relations with the United States, granting the communist country the same trade status as most other nations. Previously, Congress held an annual review of Chinese trading ties, an often embarrassing event for Beijing that served as a forum for critics to attack its record on human rights, religious freedoms, relations with Taiwan, and the environment. In exchange for the upgrade, Beijing agreed to reduce stiff tariffs on U.S. imports and abolish restrictions on overseas investments in the country. The deal was reached in advance of China's proposed accessibility to the World Trade Organization, the Geneva-based body that sets and enforces global trade rules. The bill was bitterly opposed by organized labor, which argued that the bilateral pact will encourage U.S. companies to shift low-wage manufacturing jobs to factories in China. Boy, were they right on that. Human rights activists also criticized the legislation, saying it removes any incentive for China to work to improve individual rights. Not all businesses supported the measure, however. Textile manufacturers, for example, feared the legislation could lead to a flood of cheap Chinese exports on the U.S. market, chipping into their profitable sales. They were true. Among the biggest winners of the legislation would be car makers, financial service firms, and telecommunications companies. An area research director of the University of Michigan's William Davidson Institute quoted, which studies emerging economies. For U.S. businesses, the trade pact is a necessity to stay competitive on the world stage, said Ying. If the U.S. does not research a market-opening trade deal with China, then China will open its markets to companies in Europe and elsewhere, he stated. Last week, the 15-nation European Union reached a bilateral trade accord with China. Quote, "In all these industries, we have competitors, and they are the Europeans," he said. The U.S.-China bill calls for China to cut tariffs on an array of U.S. imports. It will cut duties on autos to 25% from the current 80 to 100%. And by 2006, it would phase out quotas. Import duties on auto parts will also be reduced. China also agreed to end restrictions on the operation of car dealerships within its country. This is really the first, as far as I'm concerned, the first true attempt on the part of the United States government to help farmers get into the world market, said Tony Anderson, a soybean farmer in Mount Sterling, Ohio. "We're just ecstatic about it," he said, after hearing about House passage of the bill. "It's the best news I've heard all day." In the U.S., in 2000, textile jobs encompassed a wide range of roles related to the production and processing of fabrics and textiles. These included jobs in fabric mills, cut and sew apparel manufacturing, and textile-related wholesale and retail operations. The industry involved a variety of processes from yarn spinning and weaving to knitting and tufting. So when the bill was passed, I was boggled. I was like, wait a minute. How in the world can a capitalist country fairly compete with a communist country? It made no sense to me. And I was totally against it. But as time went by, Harbor Freight became my favorite Chinese store. Products that were offered to me from the business I was running were now being imported for China at a fraction of the cost, which allowed small business people like myself at the time to be able to lower our prices by a little while at the same time raising our profit margins. It all sounded beautiful and delightful. But look at where we're at today. What's happened today is we've lost untold numbers of industries throughout the South and Southeast. Sorry, everyone, I had to move inside. It was getting too windy out there. So this is where the rant comes in my conclusion. It's definitely true that the U.S.-China Relations Act of 2000 was terrible legislation. It was partisan as hell. Only it was partisan for the wealthy donors, corporations, and the moneymakers in our society, the greedy people, Sick of the greedy people. Listen, there's only one way to change this, and it ain't going to happen in 90 days, and it probably isn't even going to happen in 4 years. It's going to happen with slow, methodical planning to bring manufacturing back home. Steps that the last administration were taking and the new administration has abandoned in favor of taxing us with hopes, no proof, hopes that it'll fix. But unfortunately, after 25 years, China has us by the short hairs because everything we consume, we get from China now. We've allowed corporations to gut our communities, take away any meaningful employment, and just rape us. And now they expect us to fix it through another tax. That's ridiculous. We have to stop. The party's over. Stop voting on the party line. You need to vote for the person that's going to go in there and is going to represent your community and what's in the best interest of your community. Not in the best interest of corporations, not even in the best interest of international trade. In the best interest of you, the voter, the best interest of your community. This has gotten just way ridiculous. We get to vote every 2 years. Do you realize the pressure you can put on your representative if he's not in there representing your community, representing the best interests of your community? If that person doesn't, vote him out. You get to vote every 2 years. Participate. Vote. Vote like your life matters of who's in Washington, D.C., because it does. It matters a lot. Don't be buffaloed. Don't take that's what they say. Take some time. Invest in your own personal interest. Do a little research. And let that congressperson know, no, you did the wrong thing. I'm going to vote you out next time. Stop the party line voting. Vote for who's going to do the best job for your community. It's ridiculous. Think we could compete against communist society as a capitalist society. Utterly ridiculous. Be damned. This is going to probably take a minimum of a decade to fix. This is 25 years of total damage to our economy. It's time to stop. Get out there and vote. Vote every 2 years. And don't vote for the same person if it's the same person that's ruining your community. It's time to be real. Stop the party line bullcrap. It's ridiculous. Get out there and vote. Never vote for the same person. An old wise man told me that once. Vote as often as you can, but try to avoid voting for the same person over and over. Because this is what you get. The greed of the corporations is way out of control, and I don't even know how we're going to bring it back. But anyway, that's my rant for the day. Thanks for watching. If you like my content, drop me a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe. Don't be afraid to make suggestions, because I'm not always right. Nobody's ever always right. I did this channel to maybe learn a few things. But until then, until next time, stay bipartisan, and goodbye for now.